Mornings with Will on 531 PI.
Māloa te alawa o Pongpongini. Now, the government says Budget 2025 delivers targeted support, but will it hit the mark for Pacific communities or miss us completely? Joining us to unpack the numbers, the politics and the real-world impact are ECG Consulting Group Director Sarah-Jane Elika, respected community leader Pakilau Manase Lua and PMN's political reporter Ala Vailala. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morena. Now, Pakilau, let's start with you. What was your gut reaction to the Budget 2025?
No surprises, really, to be fair. You know, it was a very B budget, B for Blue National, business, and bugger all for Pacific, excuse the language.
No, that can, I can understand that there. You wrote quite a blistering reaction on social media. We'll get to that. But Sarah-Jane, what's top of your mind for you as you reflect on this budget? What stands out most to you?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that it's a growth budget, a budget of austerity. We've also heard that it's a bitsy budget, a business budget. I would say leise tupe budget for me, and it's a budget of resilience for our Pacific people.
Nice one. Now, Pakilau, back to you. Now, this budget talks about national priorities. Does it respond well to the lived reality and needs of our Pacific families?
Absolutely not. They've kneecapped women in terms of pay equity. That's massive, and that disproportionately impacts on our women, our mums, our daughters, our wives. They're the ones in the front line making this country work, and they're basically, government said, you're not important. Other things are more important than you. Youth have been hit, and we have a disproportionately higher number of young people. That's going to impact us a lot more. And the messages we're giving our young people is, look, just hang tight. Something will happen, but not now.
It's kind of a hang in there. But there was some positive news for business owners. And Sarah-Jane, from your perspective as a company director, what does this budget offer Pacific-owned businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. I reckon if I can just scene set for our Pacific listeners at the moment. So in New Zealand, MB data says that about 1.6% of small to medium business owners are Pacific entrepreneurs. So it's a very small percentage. And for self-employed Pacific people in New Zealand, it's about 1.5% of the working proprietors in New Zealand. So compared to our Pacific population, where there's 8% of us, for business owners and business proprietors that are about 1 to 2% in New Zealand, there is still a lot of underrepresentation in the business community. However, with that, for business owners, there is the 20% rebate against taxable income for investment and capital expenditure, and that's a good thing. It is a little contradictory because the Tawula Business Fund is gone, which is the very nature in which business has that investment fund. So I think we've just been pulled back into that general broader category, but I've just seen set for you the realities of how small the Pacific business community is, looking at the business landscape in New Zealand.
Yeah, yikes, you are among a majority there, Sarah-Jane. Okay, moving to you, Ala. You've sat through a couple of budgets now. How does this one compare in terms of tone, ambition and political risk?
Definitely much sharper in tone. Ambitious-wise, the government's going big, I guess, shifting how we fund tax cuts, overhauling pay equity, and trimming the public sector. But with that comes risk as well. If the economy doesn't bounce back fast enough, or if communities feel the pain more than the gain, this budget could turn into a liability rather than a win.
Interesting. Just turning back to you, Sarah-Jane, quickly. This government's approach to pay equity, their changes there. Do you think low-income women, particularly Pacific and Māori, are being left to carry the burden of this government's saving strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm all about data and evidence. And so the pay equity gap between Pākehā men and Pacific women in New Zealand is 20.9%. So Pacific women earn 72 cents for every dollar a Pākehā men earns. And we've just heard that there has been a $3.2 billion savings from the pay equity legislation. So the data sort of addresses the question that there was already inequities before the legislation changed. This legislation genuinely would have helped alleviate a lot of those claims, particularly where Pacific women are in low income employment. I mean, I'm all about looking at the positives that have come out of that. Where has that money been redirected? And I would say for our Pacific community, the youth and skills development boost is where a lot of that, some of that spend has gone to. So we need to encourage our young people, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, use the opportunity to get into skills-based education and training, because that's where our mum's working dollar has gone to. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I'm sure, the teenagers are raised in communities and families where, those values of providing and contributing are strong. Pakilau, what do you think the impact could be of the 18 and 19-year-olds not being able to access a benefit and instead having question marks over their parents' income and whether they can support them?
I think it's a good thing to encourage young people to not go on the dole, but there's not a lot of opportunities out there for work. There's high unemployment. So what are they going to do? And again, this is kind of the crosshairs on our communities. We have a disproportionately higher number of young people than Pākehā. And so again, this is a government that's kicking a dog while it's down. On one hand, they're saying, go and get work, go and set up a business, but this is the hardest time to do all of that stuff. And so can you blame our young people if they go to the gangs? Can you blame them if there's ram raids? Can you blame them if there's the drug situation we have? What the government's doing is they're focusing on the areas that are fairly well off and doing okay, and they can survive, but leaving us to our own devices. And so, you'll get what you'll get.
Yeah, and just staying with you, Pakilau, health is a big value of yours, and the government's putting more money into after-hours healthcare, including a new facility in Counties Manukau. Is the government heading in the right direction with this approach to Pacific healthcare?
Barely touching the sides. I think they're not even keeping up with the needs on the ground. You just got to go to your local GP and see the queues going outside. That tells you that there's a strain on the sector. They've gutted the core services, and they expect us to do more with less. How does that work?
Oh, it leaves a big gap for question marks, that's for sure. Sarah-Jane, there's a lot of innovation in our communities, often outside the government system. Do you think this budget supports Pacific-led solutions or sidelines them?
I think our community has to be innovative in how we design our solutions. I mean, we've already shown that Pacific-led solutions for Pacific communities work. I go back to the opportunity around business development. There's no sort of cap on how you go out and start your business if you're talking about innovation. So, if you want to start that side hustle to be able to, supplement your current income, there's an opportunity for investment in that with capital funding. There will be some tax back around that. So it's kind of looking about how you can be innovative with what we've got. Again, the learning support investment for learning support coordinators in terms of education, there's $192 million that are going to be spent in areas where learning support is needed. Let's flip the dial around that and think about opportunities where Pacific educators can get in there and help teach our kids Pacific-led solutions through education. And again, we just have to build our resilience from what we've got in front of us. The reality is it was always going to be a tightened budget. That's not a surprise. So we need to now flip it and think about how we can be innovative for the future. When we talk about the future of work and how our Pacific population in New Zealand is developing, young people are the future, we're the future. And so our ways of building leadership, connecting with our people in the workplace, utilizing the skills we have around AI and technology, looking at how we're really great at building relationships and those sorts of soft skills around entering in the workplace. We need to think about what those strengths are, because those are not going to change as we move forward into the future.
Yeah, and just staying with you, Sarah-Jane, do you think, like you mentioned, this stat about 1.6% of the business owners are from Pacific communities, where's the gap between all this funding that's going in and, incentives for entrepreneurship? Where do you think that's not hitting for our Pacific communities?
Well, I think, again, why I said it's a bit bitsy, this budget, is because there was some targeted investment around the Tawala funding for Pacific businesses. Now the investment is still there for the general public. So it's not that it's not there, but actually it's almost showing that everything's gone back into the general pool. But evidence over the years, particularly with Pacific-led solutions around business, education, the COVID response, we've moved further forward as a community in New Zealand around understanding where the solutions are, and the solutions are community-led. So now things have been brought back into the general pool. We just have to keep on going and demonstrate that community-led solutions do work with the funding that's available.
Yeah, absolutely. Pakilau, changing tack, but housing and cost of living are top concerns. Do you feel like the budget takes meaningful steps to ease this pressure for our families?
Well, apparently they think it's going to trickle down. This is trickle down budget. It's more like a little drip, and house prices are likely to go up. They reckon the economy is going to grow, but slowly, and that wages will grow with that. I don't know. We're in a tough financial environment with global, crisis all over the world, and we've got Mr. Trump's tariffs, all of that stuff, and our communities again are going to bear the brunt of the negative aspects of everything, because we have a government that's not really signaling any real and meaningful support on the ground. And sometimes we're our worst enemies. I've got to be honest. We've got to take some stock on this. Our communities need to, and I agree with Sarah. Sarah-Jane said something about communities taking charge and taking their own, well-being, on their own and pushing hard. I think that's something we need to do. We've got examples in the community where community groups like the Tokelauan community in Wellington, the Inati, you've got the Inasi here in Auckland growing. Communities have the solutions. Government need to invest in communities and support them, and agencies need to provide the funding to get things going and not put them into projects that like that Whale, whatever it is, that got 10 million and now they have to give that money back because they haven't spent it. Sometimes we're the worst. That 10 million could have come to Auckland and help local communities here build hubs where they can support businesses, like Inasi and like other things that are happening on the ground, rather than just speculative stuff that's not really going to benefit anybody.
Yeah, no, I can hear where you're coming from, Pakilau. Moving to you, Ala, are there parts of the budget that have flown under the radar, but that could have big implications for our Pacific communities?
Definitely. I think we've already heard about the pay equity, the cuts to MPP, a big one as well, the shutdown of Tawala Business Fund, and support for employment programs like Te Ōrau. And I think a really important stat to touch on is that Pacific unemployment in New Zealand, most recent data has found that it's twice the rate as the national unemployment rate. So our Pacific people take a big hit when it comes to unemployment, and most recently a bigger hit. There's also been quite a cut to climate funding, around $100 million that would have gone to Pacific climate resilience, and changes around the Dawn Raids reconciliation programs that could mean that process wraps up earlier than expected. So those are some big shifts that have made the headline but could have been missed.
Yeah, no, so much to unpack there. And we did this with the last panel, but I'd like to get your reaction to further reduced funding at the Ministry for Pacific Peoples. Pakilau, we'll start with you. What do you make of the cuts to MPP funding?
Not a surprise. You got Seymour there saying he wants to blow it up. And, this is like off the back of further cuts. I think they cut it by 26 mil last year. And there's another 30-something odd cut this year. That's a huge amount of money being taken out of the targeted ministry that supports our people. And the signal is this government doesn't care about Pacific. That's what I'm hearing.
And Sarah-Jane, your thoughts? Are there long-term risks of weakening a ministry tasked? It's meant to advocate for Pacific policy and investment across government. So, yeah, what are your thoughts there?
So I think as a business owner, when you run business, the hustle is real. Like, you're always pitching for your work, you're always trying to pick up work. You have to get out there to earn your stripes to survive and get people that believe in your product. So when you are thinking about how to deliver solutions for our communities, the policy side in terms of MPP is really critical, because they are advocating the data and the evidence that business owners have, that other Pacific owned organisations can demonstrate. On the ground, we can provide the data and the evidence for the policy designers in Wellington. And so that's really how the relationship works. We need to have our communities and our Pacific-led organisations demonstrating that what we're doing works. And then we need to have our policy analysts, organisations and political organisations, and also MPP really demonstrating that the evidence is there and it's working, and they lobby what we can show in terms of outcomes and results. So it is such a crucial partnership. I think that, we've got what we've got right now, and so we reflect on that, and now we have to pivot and demonstrate that what we've got to do the best with what we have. Targeted solutions work, and we just need to demonstrate that when we're designing solutions for the community around education and investment and health, that the inclusivity by design really helps get those in most need ahead. And the targeted solutions work. I mean, we've had the social investment 250 million announcement, and that has all been based on being an outcomes-based investment. So the language is there. We have our providers that can demonstrate that the evidence shows results around targeted solutions. So now we just need to lobby those more over the line. Our people have to get smarter about voting next year, because that is how we make the change as well. And so it's kind of all these levers working all together for our Pacific population and our community to move forward.
Oh, thank you, Sarah-Jane. And finally with you, Ala, politically speaking, do you think, what's behind this repeated targeting of the ministry? Do you think it's ideological, financial, or something else entirely?
You could say it's a bit of a mix. I mean, we've got the ACT Party, who are part of the coalition government, who have voiced their belief in not believing in race-specific funding, and we heard that message again last night by their leader, David Seymour, and they see it as unfair and divisive. Financially, the ministry is small, so it's an easy place to show cuts without, I guess, upsetting big-ticket departments as well. But politically, it's all about signalling for parts of their voter base as well, cutting the ministry as a way to push on back what they see as identity politics. The risk, though, is that it damages trust within our Pacific communities, especially if our people feel targeted or left out.
Okay, interesting times. Hey, malo pito to our panelists, Sarah-Jane Elika, Pakilau Manase Lua and Ala Vailala, for sharing your insights on our Budget 2025. If you missed it, you can watch the full interview on 531PI's Facebook page.